CTV family. Catch us live on your TV screens.
Yes, catch us live on the TV screen. Indeed, ladies and gentlemen, it is still about the hours of 4 o'clock and 5 o'clock. So you know what time it is. It is Ekse time. Please, you know what I'm going to say? Don't touch that remote because we bring you nothing but fire. And today is Talk Thursday. So we're just talking and sitting down and discussing the state of refugees in South Africa. Today, joining us in Studio Luandile is an author who wrote a book, research rather, about a refugee, in particular one that fled from the DRC when she was only 22 years old. And we also have the refugee with us in studio who's going to be telling us her story. And of course, we have
our resident lawyer.
She's
in the building, yes.
I'm just going to let our guests introduce themselves and the roles that they played in the book. So I think it's safe to start with you, Ms. Nieteling.
Mona Lisa, yes, I wrote this book after I've been the tracing officer for the International Committee of the Red Cross for many years, from 2000 to 2009. And when they moved to Pretoria, I felt I really wanted to do Adolphine's story because I'd got to know her very well during the time where she was with Bon Esperance. And there was just something about her story. She always just told the bare bones of it, but I felt there was much more, and we got very close. So I started that, and it was difficult because I knew it's a subject which is very convoluted and there are a lot of problems about it. People accepting otherness of people coming into our country. But it's been an incredible journey. It really took 4 years.
And I actually want to know, if someone is watching there and maybe they like, I've never heard, what is the status of the refugee in this country? If you were to just put it roughly, what do you think people that are from other countries experience when they come to South Africa?
I think they have a lot of problems settling down because I think all over the world, there's an otherness which people are worried about. They can't kind of come close to each other, and perhaps there's a lot of distrust maybe. So I think it's very distressful for them to be able to fit in and to find work when there's so little work for everybody. So I think it's a very difficult journey for them. And also because there are different groups. There are migrants who want a better life. And then there are ones that are true refugees, like in the case of Adolphine.
Speaking of Adolphine, please do introduce yourself and tell us a little bit about your story just before we dive into it, as Ms. Nieteling has already touched on it.
Thank you. Good afternoon. I'm Adolphine, and as you have heard from Estelle, I'm really very honored to be among you, and also thank you for the viewers out there. You know, being a refugee or escaping from a home country, it was a very distressful situation, and it was very traumatic experience that one can never think or believe that you could survive in such a a very distorted way of loss, grief that you carry with you all the time, especially as a mother and a woman, for that sake, with children.
I love that. And then can I just speak to you? I mean, we're going to tap into the law side of it more intimately a little later on. But as a person who is people talk a lot about documents and when you need to move. What is the right way for people to move from one state of country to the other? And you would advise them as a lawyer so that they don't find themselves in tricky situations.
I mean, there are two types of people who can come, immigrants and refugees. For refugees, already they're coming here to find refuge. So most of the times they're coming because they're desperate. So we cannot ask them to have papers. Most cases, they don't even have any documentation. So for refugees on their own side, nothing is required besides just giving us their story. If they can prove enough that indeed they're coming from a place where they need refuge, then they have to be treated like refugees. Whereas they're also immigrants, and with immigrants, generally they have to have documentation, be it visas or passport that is valid.
Now I just want to know from you, Ms. Aldophine, how did you feel about your story being researched and a book being written about your life and fleeing your hometown?
Yes, thank you for that great question. For me personally, I felt it was very important to speak so that I voice out you know, the story and the pain behind,
Yeah.
you know, what a woman or a mother that goes through. Because it's about let the world learn. It's about informing. It's about awareness. And it's about appreciating also those that have really passed during this, you know, journey that some they couldn't even reach where they could, but they had lost their lives with their children and so on. So it's about the good cause. And the other reason was also is to get the healing, because during the process of doing the book, for me, it was more to release myself from the pain and just speak up, you know, what was sitting in me for a long time.
And then, ma'am, I just want to find out from you, how long did it take for you? Like, I mean, how much research did you have to do in order to compile a book? Because I know writing a book takes a long time, but you told me that you've seen her, you were into her story, but you knew there was more depth to it. So how long did it completely take you to find out all the different layers that there were to this beautiful, heartbreaking story as well?
It took a long time. We had many meetings in our office, in my flat where I lived in Rondebosch.
Yeah.
And we used to just sit and chat and so on. And I used to find that the more we spoke, I realized that there's a lot of research that needed to be done, because her life was affected terribly by Mobutu Sese Seko, who actually virtually bankrupted his country. He virtually stole the wealth of the DRC. And Adolphine's family, entire family, and even ancestors were affected by the faction fighting. So as we spoke, I had to do, sometimes it was hard for her to carry on, and then I would have to read up. There's not much written about the Congo, and yet we're all in Africa. I don't really understand that. It's almost as if we're all in these sections, and it doesn't make sense to me. So I had to do a lot of research, and sometimes there was a lot of synchronicity. And the interesting thing was that Mobutu Sese Seko, his reign, that ruinous reign of his cruel reign, ended a year after Adolphine had to leave the DRC in such a situation of danger. So that was very, very interesting. And also Patrice Lumumba, who was a freedom fighter, a renowned freedom fighter, and her father, he built his life as a political person, and he was very influential as an artist as well. And so a lot of his influence comes into the book, because it all forms a part of her story. So it was an incredible journey for me, and changed my life completely. The fact that I'd seen so many refugees, I was trained very well by the International Committee of the Red Cross, but nobody can prepare you for when a grown man or a grown woman sits and sobs in your office. So it helped me a lot.
Now, as we mentioned already, well, rather you mentioned that there's not enough research done about different countries within Africa, and we're all in Africa together. Ms. Patricia, please let us know what awareness what could we do to spread the awareness about refugees, and just in Africa as a whole, what is not being done right now, legally and just not legally?
Well, the fact that everything is just being on paper, but practically it's not being implemented, that's the main issue that we are having. You find so many people being victimized when they're already victims of their circumstances and situations. So I think it's a matter of educating one another and just promoting the spirit of Ubuntu, because the whole Refugees Act is based on humanity. So I think as people of the African continent, we need to come together, because my fight is your fight, and your fight is also my fight. So basically, we just need to understand each other and learn
Africa
more
needs
about
to
each other.
seriously unite, and what I want to say about that is that later on we'll be joined with a group called Africa Unite. So I just love the fact that everything is just synchronizing today. But before we go, time is really not by our side right now for this segment. I just want to know from you, Ms. Nieteling, how can people get the book, and where can they access the book?
Well, it's van Schaik, I'm not quite sure how to pronounce it, and Take a Lot. There's another organization as well, and of course to send a www.unisa.ac.za. It will be out in e-book within some time,
Okay.
not straight away. So it's not generally available in all the bookstores, shops, but it will be eventually. So yes, at the moment it's a case of
Going
making
to
one's
those.
known that, that one is wanting to buy the book.
Yeah, and I love that so much. I literally love when we get to sit down and have these conversations. Listen, ladies and gentlemen, we are having a conversation, which means two people are speaking or more, which means you need to be speaking to us up on our socials and let us know, actually, do you feel like refugees rather, are being represented well in this country and actually just generally around the world? And if you have a story that you'd like to let us know, you can inbox us on our Facebook page, Ekse Live. But right now, though, we're going to take a quick break and we will
breather.
see everyone after this.
See you soon.
CTV family.